Hello and welcome. We are Amy Pothong, and next to me we have
Philip Tucker.
We are British International Schools Phuket College Counsellors, and thank you for joining in. Today, we would like to share with you some of the best practice in providing college counseling that we all participate in the Arthit Ourairat schools. Before we get started, we're going to get to know who we are, and then we'll look at some various best practice elements, as well as wrap up with some future goals that we want to continue to foster within the college counseling community here at AOI. Let's get started.
Okay, let's do it. Hello again, so this is me. So I'm British, but I was born and raised in Africa. And then I had, most of my education was in the UK, where I went to secondary school. And then later on, I did my undergraduate course in London. Much later, I did a master's in international education. And then somewhere in between those two, I qualified as a teacher. I've spent about over 30 years, in fact, traveling the world, working in international schools, getting a varied amount of experience. In recent times, I made the transition from teaching into college counselling. I got my certificate in counselling at the University of California, San Diego, and made the transition from the then head of humanities into college counselling. So that's me. Amy?
Yes. So this is me. So as you can probably guess, I am Thai, but having the experience to grow up in Baltimore, Maryland, I've had the opportunity to attend both of my schooling there. So as a trained professional counselor, I have a degree in clinical psychology from a local small school called Towson University, with my master's from Johns Hopkins University, right in my hometown of Baltimore, Maryland. I would say that my first international job started about 10 years ago in 2014, taking my first role as a comprehensive counselor, social emotional and college support at an international school in Chiang Mai. And part of what Phil and I share in terms of our background, I feel like we do have that diverse needs and potentially having an understanding of our students in terms of being educated abroad and having larger goals of studying somewhere post-secondary.
In college counselling, we face constant change and turmoil in higher education, in our schools, in the wider world. And yet, despite these shifts, one thing remains the same, remains unchanged, and that is our students. Their needs, their aspirations, their concerns are what drives us in our work. Our role is to support and guide them and to help provide them with the tools and the confidence that they need to succeed. Our commitment is to student success, and it remains at the heart of what we do, and it's extremely rewarding for us. What we'd like to do is just to take you through what we see as the key elements of our best practice in BISP, which is comprehensive application support, personalised guidance, parental involvement and communication, partnership with staff, and professional development. If we start with comprehensive application support, what does this look like for us and what do we do? Well, as you can see here, there's various kind of stages to this. And I think you can think of it as a transition, as a time frame from the years lower down the school in year 9 and 10, all the way up to year 13. In year 9 even, and especially in year 11, we do a lot of work with students about their choices, their subject choices, as they think about what GCSEs to do and what IB subjects to do. We have meetings with them to discuss this in line with what their future goals are, even though we know their future goals change constantly. We say exploration because there's a certain amount of exploring and self-discovery as we want students to think about what they're good at, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and so on, and go forward from this. The next one is investigation. When students are in year 11 and year 12, we expose them to the world of careers. We get them thinking about what careers are out there. And especially in year 12, we get them to start thinking about universities and what universities they might like to attend. We can do this, for instance, because we have an amazing fair in September where we have 140 universities coming here, and they can explore and investigate options in that way. Some students might like to look at scholarships and this is a process that we can help with. In Year 12, we're going to start a kind of a fairly structured post-BISP planning curriculum. We'll see the Year 12s and 13s regularly, on a regular basis, and we'll take them through the various tasks and important things that they need to consider. So at this stage, again, in Year 12 especially, it's about organising for their applications. There's lots of things that they need to consider. As early as Year 11, they might do a PSAT. Certainly through Year 12 and Year 13, they'll do an SAT if they need to. There might be other exams and tests that they need to consider. Students will be making shortlists, and they'll be joining application platforms. They'll be swatting up about their deadlines and beginning to think about a plan for going forward to make their applications. Especially at the start of Year 13, I would say advocating becomes very important. First of all, the students themselves need to self-advocate by writing good personal statements and essays, by showcasing their supercurricular achievements, and that's something that we really help with. And of course, as us as counsellors, we advocate for these students. We write references, and we support them in showcasing themselves. And then latterly, after their exams, there's the business of transitioning and leaving high school, which is no small matter, and we help students with going forward with this, with the practicalities of going to the wider world and university and transitioning out of our school.
The second support plans that we do have for our students is to make sure that we spend the time with our families and students in providing personalized guidance. And what this looks like is a division of caseload. Between Phil and I, we divide our students by last name, but we're still operating under team structure where we do have an open door policy where families and students can really come see either of us for anything that they'll need. But in order to keep organized and making sure that we don't really have anybody slipping through, we really keep the primary counselor up to date as much as we can. We also have meetings, and these meetings are with students, families, and teachers around. We have key stage meetings where we discuss students' goals and what they might want to do. We want to make sure that a lot of our meetings are goals driven, as well as making sure that we're on the same page in regards to what other students' post-secondary plans. Part of what keeps us organized and catered in this individualized plan is also tracking. There's a lot of platforms that we use nowadays, but our favorite that we use and often refer to is Unifrog. So from the start of the journey of subject selection onto creating long lists and short lists, all of those tools are provided on Unifrog. We also have a lot of shared spreadsheets in our share drive, which can sometimes be a lot, but in terms of making sure that we keep that attention with students according to their needs, it's become such a helpful tool for us to make sure that we track all of our meetings and providing support. And this goes a little bit beyond college counseling, because we do recognize that students are holistic individuals. So we also want to encourage that balance, working with well-being coordinators to help support well-being just throughout the time that we have with them, providing as needed assistance, and also continue to foster a relationship that we have with the community, as well as involving family as much as we can. Which takes it to our next best practice, which is really having to focus on parental involvement and communication. What this looks like are various strategies, such as providing workshops, making sure that parents are aware that we have certain types of workshops throughout the school year, with the latest one being applications with an edge. So how to best represent your own profile, so that way when you are applying to university, you can have your application stand out among thousands who are applying to the same university. We want to make sure our communication is ongoing, so we receive a lot of emails and we're really good at just responding to them. Phone calls sometimes, but sometimes when we're not in the office, it's a little bit tough. We also work really closely with the secondary principal in sending notices. And we have university advising Facebook posts that we often post. our updates and university fair, etc. on there, as well as working with the marketing team to push information out there on the school blog or school-based platforms. Another element to parental involvement is setting up common goals. So really not wanting students to feel so alone in the process or feel like they're not being supported in any way. Having set common goals is really important, especially around year 11 or year 12. That's when we often get the conversation going around destination, financial support, and what that looks like for the students and family. Last but not least on the involvement is supporting students' exploration in various career paths. We don't really have the luxury of students going into university undecided or not declaring what they want to study outside of the North American continent, I would say. So oftentimes when students are applying, they are required to choose an area to study, and changing that might be a little bit more difficult. So looking at different career options and maximizing our parent community, who are a rich resource for us, we have been able to have career talks, maybe 2 or 3 this year, where we're getting parents coming in and talk to our students. We're hoping that will continue to grow, and right now those connection and networking have potentially turned into relationships that are that comes with things like an internship or a work experience. So we really want to continue to have that strengthened throughout.
Yes, our next element of best practice would be partnerships with staff and alumni. And this is crucial. You know, we don't want to work in isolation. That's ridiculous in a school. We have to work very closely with our colleagues, and it helps us indeed to do so. So just an overview of some of the people we work with. Well, in counselling, Amy, as she said herself, is a comprehensive counsellor, social and emotional counsellor, as well as a college counsellor. And we have other social and emotional counsellors within the school. And it's very important that we work closely with them. You know, they're the sort of first point of contact with students. They're seeing the students all the time. They know how the students are doing. And ultimately, you know, we are counsellors, and students' welfare is what matters above everything else. So those are really important partnerships. And then, as Amy mentioned, leadership are important. The principal, the head of senior school, the senior school leadership team, these are all important people. They help us, of course, in planning events and projects. And then there's the upper school team, or the sixth form team, if you like, the IB coordinator and his assistant. And these are people that we have to work very closely with. In fact, we have regular fortnightly meetings with them. And they will bring in some other support service teachers as well, people like the people who work in additional educational needs, the head of boarding, because we have a lot of boarders here, and then those teachers who are also wellbeing coordinators. So together as a group, you know, we are entirely focused on students, and we can oftentimes be seen going through lists of students, mainly students of concern at the time, but also other students with special requirements or special needs. And there's a lot of discussion that goes around these students, looking out for their welfare and their progress. Teachers, of course, are vital. We need teachers to write references, to advocate for the students. We need to work with them so they can produce accurate predicted grades, and aspirational but accurate predicted grades for students. So, you know, there's a lot of support that we can give to teachers in that respect. And just general communications with these teachers is vital. Again, they are seeing these students all the time. We're seeing them perhaps a little bit less so. We're seeing them a lot in the room opposite, of course, but they're spending a lot of time with the students, and they know the kind of educational academic side very well. So we have to, and we want to keep very strong links with them. And then, you know, rather differently, our alumni. We're very proud of our alumni, the people that graduate and move on from our school. And we like to keep in contact with them, and they have their uses for us as well. If we know they're back in Phuket, we might pull them in. You can see in the picture here, top right, we have a student from a few years back giving a talk to year 12s in the IB Common Room. She was actually quite an inspirational teacher, talker, I should say, but teacher as well. And the students love it when alumni come back in and talk about their journey. Likewise, occasionally we are very fortunate, we get to travel a bit in our job. This picture here is me in a university in Australia catching up with an old student of ours. It was great to see him and also learn from him, because he can talk about, you know, his journey and where he's ended up and how we helped perhaps as a department and as a school for his next step. So all of these here are vitally important in our jobs. And then professional development. As we've alluded to, the world is changing fast. The world of college counselling is always changing and quite complex. It's very important that we keep up to date with what's happening, that we do our jobs. If you're standing still, you're not really doing your job, so we have to move forward. A lot of this professional development occurs just in-house, in school, off each other really. Amy and I have sort of complementary experiences and expertise. We can learn a lot off each other. Like other teachers in school, we set goals for the year, so we might identify things that we need to work towards. So these are things that we can work on in our professional development, and we can take advantage of inset days that the school puts on. We have visiting educators and in-house training events which we can benefit from as well. Networking is vitally important, and we're lucky that we have very strong and good networks of counsellors both in Thailand and globally that we keep in contact with and share best practice. University reps, of course, we see them from time to time and we hear from them a lot, and they can inform us about their developments in their universities. We learn from them, they learn from us, and various other providers in this kind of industry that we sometimes connect with are useful as well. And then there's events that we attend. We often go to conferences, sometimes close by in Bangkok, and again, like I said, we're sometimes lucky to be able to go further afield, to make international visits, to learn more about higher education in certain destinations. We have webinars as well where we can connect with people overseas. We had a webinar recently where we connected with some counsellors across the Southeast Asian region. And Amy and I, in fact, did a talk in that as well, and we also attended other talks and learnt from them. So that was a good example of PD. News, of course, ongoing. We get lots of emails through our inbox, newsletters, and so on, where we can learn about events in college counselling or recent developments in college counselling, I should say. Facebook groups are quite active, and we learn a lot from these. And the occasional podcast is quite a good thing to listen to when you're out on a walk. You can learn a lot in a 30-minute podcast on college counselling. Now, all of these things that I've mentioned here are kind of facilitated by our memberships that we have: CIS, YACAC, which is an international group of college counsellors, TUC, which is a Thailand-based group of counsellors, and then, as I mentioned, for BISIA as well, which connects schools in the region. So these particular groups facilitate these kind of professional development opportunities for us.
So how do we connect? You know, we are now 3 schools. We have BISP, we have SBS Rangsit, and then we also have SIBS in Chiang Mai as part of the Arthit Ourairat institution. This partnership is not just about expanding our connection, but it's also about embracing our collective understanding and the need to help support our students to the next destination. Whether that's an internship or further education, we want to be there for it. And it feels like each of our schools have a unique identity as well as different day-to-day experience. So at BISP, we might have an international curricula coupled with a diverse student body, whereas SBS Rangsit may really put an emphasis on strong academic foundations and local cultural integrations within their program. SIBS Chiang Mai might be known for its newer, innovative approaches and a very close-knit community. Despite all differences, we pretty much have a common goal, and making sure that we put these best practices in place while recognizing our unique needs for our community. And moving forward, it feels like these are good future goals to work towards in terms of providing the best service and best practice in college counseling, as well as looking at the student support service overall. So the first element of this is we really have a collective understanding as a group of schools that we need to continue to move forward with the time. With the landscape of higher education changing nowadays, there's a lot of moving pieces and moving elements. It's not just one application for just a certain university or one country, it's more than that. So having an understanding of what those global connections are, making sure that we're up to date with information, as Phil mentioned before, maintain the connection with university representatives. You know, in September, we have a large fair of over 120 universities. Our business cards are stacked this big, and flyers and brochures. So making sure that a lot of those elements are in place would help strengthen that global connections for our students.
Okay, the second one here is integrating advanced technology. I think, as we all know here, the world is advancing very quickly. Some would say too quickly. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the world of technology. You know, AI, artificial intelligence, is a huge thing. I think there are some in education that are quite scared of this and regard it as a kind of a sinister development that we have to look out for, because it's maybe a method of students cheating and cutting corners. This might be the case, and we have to do our due diligence when we're looking at the kinds of technology that we want to use. But at the same time, we absolutely must embrace it. We are not going to be changing the world. We have to kind of adapt to it and live with it. And there's an awful lot of technology that we can use to our advantage to help us in the job that we do and to help students understand and navigate the job that they have to do. So I think this is vitally important, and you know, I say it's a future goal. It's something we're looking at right now, but we'll continue to look at in the future. And like I said, with our professional development and keeping on top of things coming through, that's vitally important so that we know where we're going with this and what to do. Yeah.
And last but not least, looking at a way for us to continue to foster holistic development of our students. So as a comprehensive counselor, I feel like it's a privilege to be able to see students within their, you know, social emotional boundaries and what they have, as well as help direct them into the future path that they want to continue towards later on. And with how fast our world is moving, it seems like it's not only a couple of skills that they need to be prepared for. So it feels like there's a lot more necessary skills that they do need to equip themselves with, especially with the uncertain job markets. You know, the jobs that students may be getting into later on may not even be here today. So preparing for things like that not only requires transferable skills, but also social skills. Being open-minded, being sustainable, being able to find that balance and resilience factors could really help foster this development for themselves. So I feel like within the context of us working with students in college counseling, looking at a student holistically, it's something that we often keep in mind when we do the post-secondary work.
Well, we hope this has been beneficial for you.
And thank you very much.
Yours truly,
BISP
College Counsellors.
So the first question that we received is exploring the differences between looking at local applications, and we're here in Thailand, so we're looking at applications to universities in Thailand, as well as application overseas. So I think what we can share with you now is that everything is going to be on a case-by-case basis, even for local applications. There's a main application hub in Thailand called TCAS, where students have to register on that, and I think it's just Thai students. International students have their own process. If they carry a passport that's not Thai. TCAS is the main hub for that. You register information, you apply there, and then after that you look at various notices from universities. Most universities in Thailand will require some sort of a portfolio if you are entering into medicine, architecture, any kind of science fields. They will require a portfolio, and we have to look closely at the guidelines for those. But I say that the applications in Thailand, universities are providing students with a lot of details. So things like font sizes for the portfolio and when to submit what is quite clear for each section. It's not just one main deadline. And the international applications, of course, that vary. So there are common hubs that you may have heard before. For the United States, you have Common App, except for the University of California, they have their own application system. Or State University in New York, they also have their own application system. In the UK, which is probably one of my favorite because it's the easiest, you just use one main hub, UCAS, you can apply to 5 universities, and that's pretty much it. You know, you pay a flat fee, whereas other countries you might have to pay an application fee for each university. In Canada and Ontario, they have one big hub. In the Netherlands, they have StudyLink, and the applications open at different times. So a quick answer to that would be, depending on a case-by-case basis, that we'll look into applications. Second question.
Yeah, the second question was what resources can parents dive into to help and support their children in this process? Well, I think the first answer I would give is, we have a platform called Unifrog, which we actually use for students. It's a student platform that they use to help research their future possibilities and actually organize their applications. So that's a big one that students use. But the good news is that parents can also access Unifrog. So we can give them a sign-in, and parents can have a look in Unifrog. It's full of interesting and varied resources on anything that you can imagine to do with this. Wherever you're looking in the world, there's stuff that you can find. If you want to research careers and subjects, it's all in there, and universities as well. So Unifrog is definitely a go-to for parents, I think, in our school group. In addition to that, each country will have a sort of an online website that you can use to research opportunities in that country. So Amy talked about Common App, which is the application platform for the USA, but it's also linked to something called Big Future, which is a good place for students to search courses and universities in the US. Likewise for the UK, UCAS also has something called the UCAS Hub, where students and parents can dive into to look at what's on offer in the UK. If I'm thinking about the Netherlands, there's something called Study in Holland. It's got a very nice facility for typing in what you're looking for, and you can find opportunities in the Netherlands that way. Germany has something called DAAD, which does the same job, really. So these are the kind of official websites to go to for these particular countries, and there are more, of course. There's also a lot of unofficial websites out there, so I think students and parents should just be a little bit wary when they're searching some of these unofficial sites. Some of those unofficial sites are actually quite good. There's one called the Student Room, where this is purely for students that they tap into to find out things and find out what other students have said about university. So it's quite interesting. But that's definitely something you would use some caution with. But yeah, that's what I would say, is that if you're going beyond some of these particular websites, official websites, I would just say, just be very cautious about where the information is coming from. Also recognize that a lot of information out there may not be up to date. So once again, it's great to look into this stuff, but once again, we're here for any particular questions and help that we might be able to provide you with.